Is your business protected against the threat of malicious litigation and frivolous lawsuits? Are you sinking company profits into marketing campaigns that do nothing to contribute to the growth of your business? Bottled Business Sense provides practical business perspectives that uniquely emphasize both legal and media marketing strategies to protect and ensure the longevity of your business. Now, whether you're trying to provide a startup business with some level of stability or an established business with foolproof asset and estate protection, or simply attempting to get a better return for your business marketing dollars, Bill Bernard and Rick Moscoso will expose potential pitfalls to ensure the security and growth of your business, free from unwanted expense and the threat of litigation. You'll learn how to implement marketing and protection tools equal to those used by today's most successful corporations. Let's join Bill and Rick for today's Bottled Business Sense show.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Bill Bernard, one of your hosts of the Bottle Business Sense Show, and we're here bright and early Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., as we are every week, for another show, dealing principally with the entrepreneur, the business person who wants to make sure their business is prosperous and who takes all the legal precautions that he or she can to make sure that that business is stable and able to be profitable for a long time. We aim to keep you off the courthouse steps and help your business move along in the direction that you want it to go. I'm always joined every week by my co-host Rick Moscoso of Captivate 365 LLC. He deals in the marketing and specifically also video marketing aspects of our show, and I deal with the legal aspects. And I want to bring Rick on board real quick to talk about something, that's been spoken about from time to time before, but today we're going to put a video emphasis on it and talk generally about email marketing and why some of it is so ineffective and how it can be made more effective by understanding some of the quick tips that Rick's going to provide us today. So without further ado, let me say good morning to Rick. How are you today, bud?
Hey, I'm doing great, Bill. Thank you for the nice intro. That was great. And, one of the things that we as business owners try and do is to reach our customers via the internet. And that's usually in the form of email marketing. Now, for some of you who have been doing this for a while, obviously you found your niche, your system, either to be effective or ineffective. And we're going to talk about some of the ineffective ways that maybe you've been using email marketing. And how do you get out of that rut? How do you improve upon your conversions and yet entice your customer base out there to take action and to follow you a little bit more regularly? Over time, we've been accustomed to receiving so many different emails in our email box. I know I get hundreds of emails every day, and I find myself filtering headlines. And, if they're not appealing to me or not interesting, I typically will just dump them into my trash bin. And a lot of times, some of these may even get filtered into your spam box as well. But how do we get around those things? When we're getting barraged by so many different emails and so many different marketing things out there, especially if you're using really good spam filters, Google's new promotion folders, and how they segment different types of emails, the way they're able to read those. How do we overcome some of those challenges? Well, if you're still launching email campaigns, but you're not fine-tuning your strategy, if you don't have a specific purpose to it, and if you don't have a process that interacts with your followers, your active followers, then really you're wasting a lot of time and effort because you're losing them after that first email is sent out. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but one of the
no, that does make sense, Rick. But if you're out there listening, and one of the things I picked up on is how do you how do you, when you say fine tune, what would be the first thing you would do in order to determine whether or not you need a fine tuning? Like how do you know if you need a fine tuning? Is it just simply a matter of not getting responses to the marketing you're putting out, or because sometimes you really got to be on top of your game and have some measuring stick to be able to measure the responses you're getting back in order to determine if the marketing's doing any good, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then we'll start from the beginning with that, because you really need to know who your customers are that you're communicating with. Okay, you have to have a specific purpose and why you're sending them content in the first place, right? And if you are doing this properly, then there's got to be a way to measure their response, whether that's in the form of opening your emails, clicking on a hyperlink that may be included in that email that you're sending out. You could be just emailing them to send them out to see a new product that you have on your website, product or service. And so if you are using a generic email platform like, let's say, Gmail, I use Gmail, but I have different ways of measuring response, even with Gmail, Yahoo, or using Outlook. A lot of times the general email platforms don't have a way of tracking the efficacy of what you're sending out there. So you first you need a purpose on why you're contacting your followers. And second, you need a platform that's able to measure their activity, their interactivity. So even if you have Gmail, there's some great plugins out there that you can integrate into Gmail that will actually measure your open rate. You'll be notified when they open it, who opened it, and that sort of thing. I myself, if you're a business marketer, I would steer away from using Gmail, because they're doing all kinds of things now that making it harder to do effective marketing through that platform with all their spam filters they have going on. So,
what would you use, Rick?
Yeah, I know, Bill, you use Aweber. There's other platforms out there like GetResponse. There's a actually free platform with MailChimp, up to 2,000 emails a month that you can send to. I use BombBomb because I do a lot of video response. Instead of typing out emails, I'll respond with a short video answer, and that helps increase my interactivity with the viewer and keeps them engaged. They see me, they hear me, and they have also the ability to respond back via their own video if they choose to do so. So you got to find a platform that can track all these different things, so you know how to treat their responses specific to their behavior.
What's the difference, Rick, between when you're using one of these tools to measure a response? What's the difference between somebody opens the email or clicks on the email? I mean, to me, I don't understand the difference there. How do you measure an open versus a click, or are they the same thing?
Well, in general, it's the same thing, but specific to analytics, an open is an open. They opened up your email. Whether they quickly glanced through it or actually read it, that would constitute an open. And you want to know how many people are actually opening your email after they see your headline or see your subject, right? That's really important, because if they're not opening your email, then maybe there's something wrong with your subject line that's not enticing them to open the email in the first place, right? And
or maybe you're sending it out to part of your audience that doesn't like that particular subject. For example, when I'm doing mine, right, I've got employment issues, I've got estate planning issues, and I've got asset protection issue, and I'll interchange those titles as the lead article each month in my newsletter. And so somebody who may be interested in an employment issue may that month not be interested in clicking on the opening article for estate planning, for example. But as they go down, they'll see separate categories for each of the areas I practice, and they can click on that. But nevertheless, the opening article or the headlining article may not be of interest to everyone who has the need for a business attorney.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so you got to be mindful of what that headline is, what the subject matter is. Obviously, the more generic or more general you can have it, especially if you have specific niches within your service or your product line, you'll get better conversions, better opens. Now, within that email, within the body of the email, you may want to lead that viewer or that subscriber to a certain product or a certain service, and you may embed a hyperlink that goes to, let's say, your blog or to your product or service website. That would constitute a click. So both are important. One, they're never going to get the click to your website if they don't open your email. So obviously you want them to open, but then is that hook, is that teaser about your website or about your blog enticing enough where they would actually click through to your website? Okay, so two different things that we measure. We want to know not only the opens, but who's actually clicking through, who's reading the email and clicking through. One of the things that I always suggest, and if you receive any type of emails out there from other people, you'll see multiple links for the same thing, both at the beginning of the email, in the middle of the email, and at the bottom of the email. All go through the same things, but it's a constant reminder throughout the body of the email that, hey, you have an ability to click through to see more details of what you're clicking through to. Now, you really need to also be mindful when you're addressing these emails to a certain segment of your customer base. Let's say you have a pretty sizable email list. Like Bill said, not everyone is going to be opening that email based on a specific headline, right? Because it's really focused to a certain service that, let's say, Bill provides, right? So a good idea is to take a look at these lists based on their behavior. Who are the people that are opening things on trust blog posts, right? That like Bill would list in his emails, or who's clicking on the ones that are clicking on another subject matter that you may be providing. That's really all important, because now you can lump these behaviors into a separate or segmented list within the master list that you have, and now really focus in on an email message specific to that segment versus blasting it out to everyone else, where 2/3 of them may not have any interest in it at all.
So if you're in your back office of Aweber or whatever you're using, GetResponse or Bonbon or BombBomb or whatever it is, if Johnny is opening, clicking on only estate planning articles, you know that Johnny and people like him who you see in the back office clicking on estate planning, that's where you should focus sending out your productions or your writings on estate planning, right? Because those are the people that are most interested in it. Is it as simple and as basic as that, Rick? Yeah,
exactly. And here's another tip. So this is where a lot of people that do email marketing kind of miss the boat, is that for the folks that are clicking on, let's use your example of estate planning. Let's say they're clicking on that email and they're consistently reading up on those types of emails that you're sending out. Well, you should already have crafted a specific follow-up message to those people that are reading those emails. So, in other words, you can send a more specific or more detailed, or maybe just a specific email message to that segmented portion of your list as a follow-up to them, that maybe might take them along further in the product cycle or the service cycle that could potentially lead them to you as a paying client. So those are opportunities that I know a lot of people miss out on. And without analytics that these email platforms have, you'll never know what their behavior is.
Now, let me interject what might be considered by some a quick commercial, although it's not meant to be here. this is, when you're listening to this, you realize how much work's involved. I realize how much work's involved. So imagine spending a day doing all this, or the course of a week, or how many months, or, calculating all these analytics and then putting them into categories and making folders for certain people for this area, that area, etc. That's what Rick does for a living. I mean, so retain somebody like Rick, preferably Rick, who can calculate your analytics, tell you what folders you need to put certain people in, create an email marketing plan for you that works, and then bingo, all you do is press a button, or better yet, Rick presses a button for you every week on your behalf, and your business is taken off for an investment that's going to, lo and behold, bring you in profits that are going to make the investment well worth it. I mean, that's really a large part of what we're saying here today. This is intricate stuff, and it's time consuming, but this is the way you do it, and this is what you're supposed to do. And if you can't do it yourself, if your business and your time is so big and so consumed where you can't afford to just set the time aside to do it yourself, then hire a marketing person, because that's what you need to make this stuff really work right.
Yeah, I can give you a real time example, or a real life example, and this really goes out to the real estate crowd out there who has to really be in contact or touching their user base or their client base a lot throughout the cycle, before they even pick up the phone, or even before they go to the website. And anytime we send out a video production, a short tutorial, or a short how-to, or just an information email, video email to them, what we want to know is who's opening that email, who's reading it, and then who's clicking on the video to watch it. Because all that stuff's important, because these are potentially warm leads for your business. So what I look at is who's watching the video, and are they watching that video all the way through, or are they dropping off at a certain point during the video? These analytics can tell you that a lot of times. And so after we send out a video, the most likelihood for them to click on or to read your email happens within the first 24 to 48 hours. After that, it dramatically drops off. You'll see immediate opens within that first 24 hours, and that gives you a litmus, or gives you a good read of who's actually listening to your stuff or reading your stuff. That should be a really good indicator. And that, I'll preface with a good subject line in order for them to open it in the first place. So what we do is, after that first 24 hours or 48 hours, we let it ride a little bit for a few days, like 3 or 4 days. And then what I do is I send back to that client a list of emails who watched the video, first of all, who opened the video, and then who watched the video. So it's segmented into micro lists, if you want to call it that. And I give them, here's the warm list of people that really may constitute a follow-up via phone. And call them, say, hey, I noticed you watched the video on XYZ topic. Is there something that I can help you out with? And these over time will turn into warm leads that will convert for the real estate agent into a client, should they be interested in buying or selling a house.
Well, let me interject here and just recap where we've been, because I see 6 major reasons here why your email marketing efforts may not be effective. And I think what we've talked about so far is, number one, knowing your customers, making sure you know who opens what and what specific areas they're interested in. Second, personalizing these future publications toward the individuals who have an interest in a certain area. Number 3, making sure your subject line catches their attention, and making sure that it's that identifies with their interests. And then number 4, monitor your results and figure out, okay, is what I'm doing showing an improvement in my email marketing prior to making these changes? Where we come up on number 5 and number 6, I find of interest, Rick, because number 5 says make sure your databases are not outdated, and number 6 means or talks about whether or not you're overdoing it. So let me ask you this: And I can hear thunder in the background. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I hear that too.
Man, I'll tell you, that shows you your email's marketing when you're getting thunder in the background, right? You gotta, it's important to pay attention to this stuff. When you're contacting your databases or making sure your databases are outdated. I mean, that may sound easy, Rick, but how do you go about figuring out if your databases are outdated? I mean, what do you look for?
Yeah, the easiest thing to look for is how many of those emails are getting bounced or kicked back, right? They're non-deliverable. Number one, are they unsubscribing? The majority of them unsubscribing.
Okay, hold it right there, because hold it right there. That's something I've always wondered about. When you go in your back office or whatever you're using to do your email marketing and you see the word bounced, okay, we know what an unsubscribe is. We know what an open is. So what the heck does bounce mean?
Yeah, typically a bounce means the email was undeliverable. It did not get to the email address destination that you had on your list. Either for some reason, maybe they canceled the account, it was changed. Maybe their email server is full and it's
well, then that's a red flag, right? To want to go and follow up to see if that person just had a change in email that you're not aware of, or whether that person is no longer alive, or whether that person moved, or you never know, right? So, I mean, that's a major red flag right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had one real estate agent who had tens of thousands, which is kind of weird, but he had almost 20,000 names in his list, and that list was 3 to 5 years old. And which is, forever old when you're talking about interacting with people in the real estate industry, because, what they wanted 3 years ago probably doesn't apply to them today. And so the technique that I suggest they use is, if they have been sending out to their list and you notice that, let's use real estate. The conversion rate for opens in that industry is typically anywhere between 13 and 17% opens, which may seem low, but again, you're playing the numbers, because not everybody opens all those emails, but it's pretty low. If you're converting at a rate that's in single digits, then maybe you need to refresh your list, or consider refreshing your list. And here's a technique that you can do that. So you have this list that you're emailing out to. You can always have your followers or your list re-opt in. For instance, you send them an email that says, hey, you've been receiving our marketing emails in the past and just wanted to refresh our list. If you'd like to continue to receive the information that you see as value, please subscribe to our new list.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I bet you a lot of people just don't take the time to do that. Again, time is everything here. If you need to hire somebody to do this, you really can bring somebody on board for a reasonable price, and I would urge you to contact Rick. This is really important stuff. Yeah.
Well, Rick, let me just add to that, because see, by doing this, people get really protective of their lists, in that, I've got a list of 1,000 people. Maybe only 6% are responding to your emails, and they don't want to take the chances. What if that 1 or 2 people that I take off the list are actually, potential conversions, right? Well, if they weren't opening your emails in the first place and they're not resubscribing, then, why bother? Because here's what'll happen is, if you send that email out to your list of 1,000 or 500 or whatever the number is, and you ask them to resubscribe if they find this stuff of value, your list may become smaller. But think about this. The quality of your list now is very specific to you. They want your stuff, and they're more apt to open your emails or your marketing information. And so they're better, and it's a better and warmer environment for you to talk about your products or services. So the quality of your list becomes way better.
No, I agree. That's a great point. I know we're running up toward the end of the show, Rick, but real quick, I wanted to touch upon this last one. What does it mean? What does it when you're, how do you overdo it? I mean, what does that really mean? How do you overdo this? I mean, it sounds like somebody might be listening to this now and saying, boy, everything they're telling me is really overdoing it. No, I listen to it and I say, no, this is probably stuff you're not doing, and at a minimum should be doing. So what does overdoing it mean?
Overdoing it's really based on your the category of service or product that you're selling. If obviously you're turning over products quite often during the month, then it's more acceptable to be sending out an email a week, just notifying your user base, hey, there's a new product online. If you are a service, and the last thing you want to do is bombard them with too many emails, with the hundreds of emails they're probably looking at already. Using the real estate agent model, we typically will send out a video email to their user base twice a month, and that's more than sufficient. Anything more than that, then they're going to get turned off. And probably end up unsubscribing. So I know, Bill, for you typically send out your newsletter once a month. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, and so it's once a month is sufficient. Two, maybe if you're obviously if you're a real estate agent or your business is dynamic and the information that you're sending out would require you to send more than once a month, but anything more than that, then you just be mindful of the recipient. They're receiving all kinds of emails. The last thing they want is a deluge of things they're probably not going to read from you anyway, because they feel like you're bombarding them with useless information.
Right. No, that's a good point. And there's also ways to do. One thing we haven't touched upon, I know we're running short on time, but one thing we haven't touched upon is A/B testing, and you can test campaigns. You can test subject lines. You can do a lot of that stuff. But the one thing I wanted to ask real quickly, Rick, is when you do this testing, how do you test it without, number one, without overdoing it, and number two, making sure that that you can get feedback to know which one of these things are working best? Is it just something as simple as who's opening the most of whatever you're testing, or is it something more than that?
Yeah, exactly. So like if you're using a platform like BombBomb or like Bill uses Aweber, they have built-in A/B testing capabilities. And if for those of you who don't know what A/B testing is, it's the ability to take your list and split test it. Basically, either it's a change in the headline, maybe a photograph that you're using in one and not the other, to see what the efficacy of that email is. So it'll take your list of, we'll just use, for example, you have a list of 100. It'll split that list into 50-50, right? Mm-hmm. And then you create an A/B campaign. It uses the same body, basically, of the general email that you're sending. So let's say we're going to split test the headline to see which one has more opens. So you can have headline A that goes to half your list, headline B that goes to half your list, and then you just broadcast as you would normally. And then in your analytics or in your dashboard of your email platform, you can see which one is converting better. And those types of things are built into these email platforms. You'll never get anything like that if you're using Yahoo or Google. So
that's why these platforms are so important, and that's why having somebody do this for you, if in fact you can't dedicate the time and effort to do it yourself, believe me, this is a worthwhile investment to have this done for you in terms of all of the things we've discussed today. And I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. And that's why we said when we started this program, on your team, when you start your business, you must have a lawyer, you must have an accountant, you must have a marketing person to some extent who can take the reins and do this for you. Even if you're doing it yourself, you need somebody in marketing who can take a look at your data, analyze it, and then give you the right advice at the right time. Well, This has been, Rick, I mean, this is the basic stuff that we need to talk about with our entrepreneurs, and really need to remind them about and tell them how important it is, because these things get left by the wayside sometimes when you're running your everyday business, and all you're thinking about is your craft as opposed to the basic everyday things you need to do to keep that business afloat, so you have the craft to practice in the first place. So thanks, Rick. That was a great show. And we want to remind everybody, as we always do, that we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Google Plus, we're all over the place on Facebook. All you need to do is just Google Bottle Business Sense Show and you'll find us. And for Rick's part at Captivate 365 LLC, give them a quick rundown on how they get a hold of you, Rick.
Sure. You can always reach out to me via phone at 949-667-1182 or email at rick@captivate365.com. So give me a call if you have any general questions. I can certainly point you in the right directions, or we can talk about how I can help your business on an ongoing basis. So I'd be happy to do that.
Yep. Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Rick. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you back here next Tuesday at 10 a.m. for another Bottle Business Sense show. We look forward to it. You take care and have a prosperous week.
All right. Have a good week, everyone.